Poison might be the worst type in all Pokemon. While it's reasonably strong defensively, it only hits one type super effectively, and it's resisted by 5 other types. One of those being Steel, which is completely immune to it. So, looking for a challenge, I decided to see if I could beat Pokemon FireRed with hardcore Nuzlocke rules using only Poison type Pokemon. This is how it went. If you're looking for the rules, a detailed list of them is in the description. But at a high level, if a Pokemon faints, it's considered dead and can no longer be used. We can only catch the first eligible encounter on each route. The battle style is set to set. No items can be used in battle. And we can't overlevel the next gym leader's highest level Pokemon. Oh, silly me. I left my like button down there. Oh, and my subscribe button too? Oh no, yeah, you can use them. If you like the video, go ahead and give them a click. Helps me out. Our run kicks off in good old PLATEAU. We try to wander off into the grass, but thankfully Professor Oak grabs us before we could go out there and get ourselves hurt. He then takes us to his lab where he gives us a Pokemon. We choose the grass poison type Bulbasaur and nickname it Venusaur. Our rival Gary wants to fight and we decide to teach him oh no. Anyway, we get on with the story and head up to Viridian City, where this old man teaches us how to catch a Weedle. We go into Viridian Forest to put some of that knowledge to use, and oh, it's dead. Okay. Luckily, the first gym leader, Brock, isn't too much of an issue for Bulbasaur. We take out his Geodude with one Vine Whip and then do the same to Onix. We move on to Route 3 and actually catch our second encounter, a female Nidoran, which we nicknamed Pokey. In this gen, Nidoqueen and Nidoking get awesome coverage. They get access to Thunderbolt, Flamethrower, Earthquake, Ice Beam, and so many other super powerful TMs. If we want to beat this game, we gotta keep this Nidoqueen around. Next we're headed into Mount Moon, where we catch our next encounter, a Zubat. We nickname it Flappy, and then we use the Moonstone to evolve Nidorina into a Nidoqueen before it gets to level 22 because we wanted to learn Body Slam instead of Bite. We grab our Lord Helix for good luck, and we're on our way out. We arrive at Route 4, where we get our next encounter, an Ekans. Fun fact, Ekans is snake backwards. Don't know if you know that. Unfortunately, it has the Shed Skin ability instead of Intimidate, but it's okay. Chat suggests the nickname Cocktaff, which I still don't really get. Then we arrive in Cerulean City, and we're ready to take on Misty. Luckily, this is another easy one for Bulbasaur because, you know, grass, water. We take out the Staryu in one hit. Then the Starmie sets a new record and takes a grand total of 2 hits. Then we're off to Nugget Bridge where Gary is waiting for us. He always shows up at just the right time, doesn't he? Anyway, his team isn't too scary at this point in the game, so we lead with Nidoqueen, and we take out his Pidgeotto with 2 double kicks. Next up is Abra, who doesn't know any attacks at this point. Rattata comes out, who gets a super effective face full of double kick. And then there's Charmander, who, you guessed it, gets kicked. Other than that Kakuna, this run's going pretty well. We fight our way through Nugget Bridge and we head over to catch our next encounter, an Oddish, which we nicknamed Turnip. From here, it's on to Bill's house, where he's managed to put himself in the body of a Clefairy? This has got to be a prank, right? Anyway, he gives us an SSN ticket and we head down to Vermilion City to board the ship for a nice, relaxing Gary. At this point in the game, Gary's team is starting to really ramp up and it's starting to get pretty scary. Nothing Pokey can't handle. A couple body slams takes out the Pidgeotto, and then Kadabra comes in, which at this point has actually learned a psychic move, which our whole team is weak to. Luckily, Pokey outspeeds it, takes it out with 1 body slam. Raticate goes down to the old double kick, and then Charmeleon comes out. Nothing too fancy here, just a few body slams, and Gary goes down. Tells us the captain isn't feeling well, which who better to take care of him than a 12-year-old girl. So we go upstairs, cure him with some back rubbies, and in return, he gives us the HM Cut, which we teach to Gloom. And like magic, we're into the 3rd gym. And at this point, we're facing the most advanced trash can-based security system I have ever seen. Thankfully, we're able to solve the puzzle and then challenge Lieutenant Surge to a battle. Nidoqueen has a secondary ground type, which makes it immune to electric moves, and we picked up the TM for Dig, which we taught it right before this gym. One dig and Voltorb goes down. Next up is Pikachu, who also just goes down to one dig. No problems so far. Next up is Raichu, who gets a double team off when we dig on the first turn, and that makes us miss 4 digs in a row. But the 5th dig hits, thankfully, and the Thunder Badge is ours. We head out of the gym and onto Route 9 and then into everyone's favorite section, the Rock Tunnel. With our gamer instincts, we manage to navigate through without using Flash, and then head down into Lavender Town, which we'll come back to, and then into the underground tunnel, and we arrive in Celadon. We head down and immediately challenge the gym. Erica has 3 grass types, and 2 of them share our poison typing, which is cool. Luckily at this point, Flappy's evolved into a Golbat and learned Wing Attack, which is going to be our main strategy for this gym. We outspeed the Victory Bell and get a Wing Attack off, but it lands an annoying Stun Spore, which causes us to take a little bit extra damage from Acid, but we bring it down with the second Wing Attack. Next up is our Tangela, which is really just not a threat. It takes a couple Wing Attacks, but mainly goes down without a fuss. Next up is our Ace Vileplume. This is not really a threat, and a couple Wing Attacks and we are out of this gym. We grab the Rainbow Badge and then we head over to do some casual gambling, where we see this really suspicious guy in a Team Rocket uniform. Next thing I know, I'm in a Pokemon battle with him. And then we're in this evil hideout. I don't know how we got here, but anyway, I managed to scare the pants off of this Rocket team member, and he drops a lift key and we end up taking the elevator up. Next thing I know, I'm talking to some criminal mastermind and he's also challenging me to a Pokemon battle. Fine, I guess we gotta take him out, you know? He leads with an Onix, which we take out with a couple super effective digs from Pokey. Next up is the Rhyhorn, which we take to Double Kick City. Then he switches in a Kangaskhan, which is actually pretty scary. It does a pretty decent amount of damage to Pokey, and so we have to switch in Arbok, who ends up flinching it down with a couple bites. Luckily, nothing too disastrous happens, but that thing has some potential to do some serious damage to our team. Giovanni gives us the SILPH Scope, which we need to go into the Pokemon Tower and catch some ghosts. Spooky. And of course, who else do we find there? None other than Scary Gary. This team is really starting to snowball at this point, and he's added some new members that make it a lot stronger. Luckily, we went a little bit out of order, so we're pretty over-leveled for this fight. We lead with Pokey and do the same old thing for Pidgeotto. A couple body slams takes care of it. Next up is a new member of his team, an Execute. It's pre-evolution at this point, so not too worried about it, and some body slams take it out. Then Kadabra comes out. We're 13 levels over it, so we outspeed it. One body slam and it goes down. Then he brings out another new recruit, this Gyarados. This is going to be a real problem going forward, but at this point its moveset is pretty limited, so it's not a big deal. With the help of paralysis from body slam and some double kicks, we take it out. Next, he sends in his last Pokemon, Charmeleon. We hit it with a dig, and it manages to just barely hang on, but not a big deal. We take it out with a double kick, and that's another one for the record books. From here, we move up the tower and encounter our next catch, Ghastly. I personally am a huge fan of the Gengar line, but unfortunately we won't be able to evolve Haunter into Gengar because we can't do any trait evolutions. And both Ghost and Poison are physical in this gen, so its high special attack is actually pretty useless. We nickname it Liquidly, because, you know, gas, liquid. We make our way up the rest of the tower and ultimately rescue Mr. Fuji from Team Rocket's evil clutches. Then he takes us back to his house where he gives us the Pokeflute. At this point in the game, you can decide whether to go to Saffron and fight Sabrina, the Psychic type gym leader, or you can go to fight Koga, the Poison type gym leader. The level cap for both gyms is the exact same at 43, so we have to be really careful not to overlevel here. We have to go into one of the gyms underleveled. We decide to go for Koga first because we're weak to Sabrina's Psychic types. So we head down south to Route 12 where we can get our next encounter, a Venonat. If you delay Venonat's evolution, it learns Psychic at 41 as opposed to level 52 as a Venomoth. That means if we delay the evolution, we'll have Psychic for the Poison type gym. Before we head into the gym, we go to the Safari Zone to grab the Surf HM and grab the Psychic TM from Mr. Psychic in Saffron City. We teach it to Haunter as a backup. And with that, we head into the Poison gym to challenge Koga. Now let me tell you something about Poison. Poison is weak to Psychic. And yet, this Poison gym is full of trainers with Psychic types. It makes no sense. So unfortunately, we lose Haunter to one of those said Psychic types. He's not too key to our team, so we're not too sad, but Still a bummer. Anyway, we battle through the field of psychic types and fight Koga. Koga's coughings are a little bit scary because they do know self-destruct. Luckily, we one-tap the first one, and then Muck comes in, takes 2 psychics, but goes down. Not too scary. In comes the second coughing, and we outspeed it and take it out with 1 psychic. And then it's time for his ace, level 43 Wheezing. This Wheezing gets 1 smokescreen off and makes us miss 3 psychics in a row. Ridiculous. Finally managed to hit a psychic, and then Koga comes back with an immediate hyper potion. This guy. Thankfully, we managed to hit the next psychic after the hyper potion, but at this point we're out of PP. So we actually switch in Arbok to bring it down. 1 bite's all it takes, and we've secured the soul badge. Getting this badge allows us to use Surf out of battle, which allows us to go over to the other route and catch a Tentacool. Welcome to the team, cool guy. Water coverage will be great for Gary's Charizard. Now it's time for another fun, exciting, really appropriate length Team Rocket section. We make our way to the top of SILPH and weirdly find Gary up here. You already know he's trying to have a Pokemon battle. This time we switch up our strategy and lead with Golbat for Pidgeot, hit it with a Confuse Ray and a couple wing attacks, but due to an unfortunate crit on one of the early wing attacks from Pidgeot, we actually have to switch out and bring in Pokey. Nidoqueen cleans it up with a Body Slam, classic, and then he brings in Execute. This thing is not really threatening until it evolves, so we Body Slam it down. Next, he brings in Alakazam, who sets up a Future Sight. We get an unlucky Paralysis proc on Pokey, and this allows the Alakazam to get a Reflect off, which allows it to live through 1 Body Slam. Thankfully, we also get the Paralysis off of this Body Slam, which means any team member we switch in will be faster than this Alakazam. We're scared about the Future Sight attack coming in, so we bring in Turnip, who has high special defense, to finish off the Alakazam. It tanks the attack like a champ, and then it sprays it with acid and takes it out. Naturally, he switches into Charizard, but we are ready with a switch to Cool Guy. Not only is it water type so it resists fire, but its high special defense allows it to tank a flamethrower easy. 1 Surf and it goes down. Next up, Gyarados. This is a relatively uneventful fight, but we swap out Tentacruel because it has low physical defense and bring in Venusaur. A couple Razor Leafs earns us a 1-way ticket up to the floor with Giovanni on it. His team has some serious type weaknesses, so we exploit the ground weakness of Nidorino with Dig, and then use fighting moves to take out the Kangaskhan. It gets poisoned from our Poison Point ability, and that ultimately finishes it off. Next up is Rhyhorn, who's 4x weak to water, so we hit it with a Surf. Next up is Nidoqueen, who is a ground poison type, so weak to water. Our Surf gets it down to a fraction of health, but Pokey ends up taking too much damage, so we have to bring in Venusaur to finish off the job. Another set of Team Rocket's plans foiled by a 12-year-old girl. From here, we head straight into challenge Sabrina. Since she is the Psychic type trainer, everyone on her team hits everyone on our team for super effective damage. This is the most dangerous gym in the entire game. Our strategy for this gym revolves around exploiting the low physical defense of the Psychic types that she has on her team. So we use Pokey's high attack until it gets too low to stay in. Then we have Cool Guy waiting in the wings with his high special defense, which makes him a good switch. The Kadabra goes down with no issue. Mr. Mime proves to be a little bit more tanky and takes a Body Slam, so we take a little bit of damage here and get confused. The confusion makes me nervous, so we swap in Cool Guy. Cool Guy outspeeds Mr. Mime and finishes it off with a Surf, and then he pulls off the most clutch play of the entire run. He hits a critical hit on Surf on Sabrina's Alakazam. This thing has the potential to sweep our entire team, so that's a huge win. Next up is Venomoth, who lives through a couple Surfs and gets healed a couple times, but ultimately goes down with no issue. We grab the Marsh Badge and breathe a sigh of relief. That Surf crit was a huge win for us. We surf on down to Cinnabar Island and head into the Pokemon Mansion. This is relatively uneventful, but we grab the Solar Beam TM out of the basement, which will be useful later. We open the gym door with the key we got from the mansion, and next thing we know, we're challenging Blaine. Our strategy here is pretty simple. Just hit the fire with the water. His Growlithe goes down in 1 hit, and same with his Ponyta. Oh, and his Rapidash too. No way Arcanine goes down to 1 hit of Surf, right? Huh, that was easy. With the Volcano Badge in our pocket, we head to Viridian City to challenge the Mystery Gym Leader. Huh, that seems familiar. Oh, Giovanni. At this point, we taught Vileplume Sunny Day and Solar Beam, which in Sun, you can immediately fire a Solar Beam without charging. Vileplume also has the Chlorophyll ability, which doubles its speed in Sun. Not to mention Moonlight, which will heal 2/3 of its health instead of half in Sun. This should make quick work of the ground gym. We set up Sunny Day and unleash the full taste of the rainbow onto Rhyhorn. He has a second Rhyhorn, which is 5 levels higher and still not evolved, but same thing happens. Taste the rainbow. Next up is Dugtrio, who outspeeds and manages to get an attack off, but eventually he meets the same fate as his Rhino friends. Next up is Nidoqueen. Now Nidoqueen manages to live this Solar Beam with a sliver of health. It fires back with an Earthquake, but thanks to our Grass Dual type, we actually only take normal damage from this. We trade some hits and Giovanni heals a couple times, I use Moonlight a couple times, but ultimately the Nidoqueen goes down to another Solar Beam. Next up is Nidoking, who actually has slightly lower special defense than Nidoqueen, so it just goes down to 1 Solar Beam. Pretty easy. We grab the Earthquake TM, which will be great for Nidoqueen, and then we head west to Route 22. Gary's waiting for us there in his penultimate form. His Pokemon are all fully evolved now, and his team is very strong at this point. Before fighting this battle, we went and bought the Thunderbolt TM from the Game Corner and taught it to Pokey. This is great coverage for Nidoqueen, and it hits Gyarados for 4 times effective. We're able to take out the Pidgeot with a couple Thunderbolts, but unfortunately, the Alakazam actually pulls off a clutch disable, which means we won't be able to use Thunderbolt for Gyarados unless we switch Pokey out. One Earthquake takes out the Alakazam, he brings in Gyarados, and we use Body Slam since Thunderbolt has been disabled, and fortunately, we managed to land a Paralysis off the first hit. It uses Rain Dance, which powers up its Hydro Pump, and we do not want Pokey taking one of those. So we swap in Venusaur. We get another stroke of luck with a full Paralysis on the first turn. At this point, I'm not really scared of Gyarados doing that much damage to Venusaur, so I decide to set up with Leech Seed and just play the long game. We get another full Paralysis, and Giga Drain actually ends up doing a ton of damage. So we finish it off in 2 Giga Drains and move on. Charizard comes in next and we swap in Cool Guy. It manages to live the first surf, but not a big deal. We just take it out with the second one. For some reason, Gary also has a Rhyhorn that's overleveled and not evolved. Very suspicious, but that goes down to Giga Drain. Execute comes in, who's actually not fully evolved. I thought he was. But he gets a Stun Spore off and then charges a Solar Beam, so we swap to Venusaur and finish off what Flappy started. With Gary out of the way, we head into Victory Road. I'll spare you watching me try to solve these strength puzzles. It was a cave. It was not very fun. Alright? We run up to the Indigo Plateau and start prepping for the Elite Four. Then, all of a sudden, there's no way. Yep, the game crashed. Not only did it crash here, it had crashed twice before. This crash reset me all the way to before Koga. Ridiculous. I battled back to where we were, and then we were ready to start the Elite Four. So we head in to face the first member, Lorelei. She's supposed to be an Ice-type trainer, but she's basically a Water trainer, so I think you know where this is going. We use Vileplume to set up Sunny Day, and use Solar Beam on the first Dugong. Goes down easily and Slowbro comes in. It meets a similar fate to its Seal brother. Lapras is next, who actually manages to tank a Solar Beam and do some pretty big damage to Vileplume, but since we have Chlorophyll, we know we outspeed, and we take it out with the second Solar Beam. She sends in Jinx next, and we switch in Pokey because we're worried about taking an Ice Punch on Vileplume. The Ice Punch is actually super effective on Pokey, which I think I forgot, but we managed to get a Poison Point proc off, so worst case we can stall this thing out. We bring out Cool Guy, who tanks an Ice Punch easy, then proceeds to win the Battle of Attrition by using Acid. Jinx goes down to the next Poison proc, and then Lorelei sends in Cloyster. We swap in Venusaur, and luckily the Cloyster uses Protect, and then the next turn we outspeed, and we take it out with 1 Giga Drain. 1 down, 3 to go. Next up is the Fighting Trainer Bruno. I'm pretty confident going into this battle because he does have 2 Onyxes on his team, and our team kind of hard counters Onyx at this point. So we lead with Venusaur, and it takes it out with a single Giga Drain. Next up is Hitmonchan, which for some reason I go for a Toxic stall strategy against this instead of just taking it out straight up. But we set up Toxic and Leech Seed, and then we play the waiting game. Just kidding, the waiting game sucks. We use Giga Drain, take it out. Next up is Hitmonlee, and we go for another Toxic. I don't know what I was doing here. We take a little bit too much damage on Venusaur from Mega Kicks, and we have to swap in Pokey. An Earthquake is enough to finish it off, and next in is Onix. Onix actually manages to live through an Earthquake from Pokey, and gets an Earthquake off of his own, which is super effective against Pokey, so it takes a surprising amount of damage. To be safe, we end up swapping in Vileplume to set up Sunny Day and Solar Beam. This will be good for the Machamp as well, since it's a 120 power move with Stab, and we should outspeed thanks to Chlorophyll. We get a Solar Beam off, and then it heals with a Berry, but then goes down to the second Solar Beam. Pretty uneventful. Moving right along. Next up is Agatha. Agatha is technically a Ghost type trainer, but she's really more of a Poison type trainer. She actually just has an Arbok on her team. So we're going to use the same strategy that we used for Koga. Venomoth, Psychic. Her lead Gengar is actually able to tank a Psychic due to its high special defense, and gets off a double team, which you already know, miss incoming. Yep, there you go. It gets a Shadow Punch off, and we take a little bit of damage from that, but we managed to take it down with the second Psychic. Next up is the famous ghost Golbat. We're scared about the bug type on Venomoth being weak to the flying type of Golbat, so we bring in Pokey to use Thunderbolt and take it out. Next up is Haunter. Haunter uses Hypnosis, which hits on the first turn, and we know it has Dream Eater, so we swap out and bring in Golbat. We had taught Shadow Ball to Golbat for this exact fight. 2 Shadow Balls and Haunter goes down. She sends in her Ace Gengar next, which we actually get a really lucky Shadow Ball crit on and take it out on the first turn. All that's left at this point is the Arbok. We took some damage on Golbat, so we swapped in Cool Guy and got a nice Surf crit and took it out. 3 down, 1 to go. Next up is the Dragon Trainer Lance. For this fight, we taught Pokey Thunderbolt to take care of Gyarados. We also taught Cool Guy Ice Beam to cover Dragon types. This Gyarados manages to hang on with the tiniest pixel of health ever. Fortunately, we get a paralysis, which means we outspeed it, but of course, Lance uses a full restore here. We hit our Thunderbolt after the full restore, but the next turn, the Gyarados outspeeds us and hits us with a Dragon Rage. We take 40 damage from that, and then finish it off with a second Thunderbolt. He brings in Aerodactyl here, which is pretty fortunate for us because we can hit it with super effective damage from Thunderbolt. We also managed to get a Poison Point proc off, which gets a poison damage, and that's good chip. We're worried about Pokey taking too much damage and going down to this Aerodactyl, so we swap in Golbat. I forgot that Golbat was weak to rock, actually. Aerodactyl outspeeds and gets an Ancient Power off that almost kills Golbat, but he hangs on like a champ. A Shadow Ball finishes it off, and it's on to Dragonair. We bring in Cool Guy to start getting those Ice Beams off and get that juicy super effective damage. Unfortunately, it's not a one-hit KO, so we end up taking an Outrage. But the next turn, we finish it off with another Ice Beam, and Lance brings in his second Dragonair. The exact same thing happens with this Dragonair. We take damage from Outrage because the first Ice Beam doesn't kill, and then we finish it off with the second one. Then the Dragonite comes in. Here, we have a big decision to make. While we know that the Dragonairs didn't go down to 1 Ice Beam is 4 times effective to Dragonite versus only being 2 times effective against Dragonair. If we think this is going to one-hit KO, we should go for it because we know that Tentacruel outspeeds. But if it doesn't one-hit KO, Cool Guy definitely dies. Ultimately, we bet on Cool Guy. Make us proud, buddy. Please. Please. No. Rest in peace, Cool Guy. You did us proud. We bring in Venusaur to finish off the job. Dragonite's confused. It actually gets a Hyper Beam off, which is pretty scary, but like a boss, Venusaur tanks it. We use a Synthesis and heal up and stall out with some poison. Later, Lance. That's all 4 down. We're supposed to be champion, but of course, Gary beat us to it. So since we lost Cool Guy, we have basically no answer to Charizard outside of Thunderbolt. But we need Pokey for the Pidgeot and for the Gyarados. We're going to have to pull off a miracle here. We start off by hitting 2 Thunderbolts on the Pidgeot, which takes it out, but it gets a Feather Dance off, which sharply lowers our attack. This is a real problem, as I will soon come to realize. His scariest Pokemon Alakazam comes in, gets off a Psychic on Pokey, but it tanks it like a boss. And we've got Earthquake, right? Right? Oh no. We bring in Venomat out of desperation because we figure it could probably tank the Psychic. It does not tank the Psychic. This is where the wheels really start to fall off of this run. I bring in Golbat because it has Shadow Ball, but Alakazam sets up a Reflect with the hardest read of all time, which allows it to live the Shadow Ball. The next turn, Gary uses a full Restore, and we use another Shadow Ball, which doesn't even do half. I know we're in enormous trouble at this point. Alakazam is now about to run rampant on my entire team. At least we can get a couple Shadow Balls off, but the next turn, Flappy goes down to a Psychic. Rip Flappy. We bring in Venusaur, and Alakazam actually saves us by using Future Sight for some reason. A Giga Drain is enough to finish it off. Finally. But here comes Charizard, who hits a Fire Blast on Venusaur, which it does manage to live. If we can set up Toxic, maybe we can pull this off. Oh, it missed. Turnip comes in, goes down to the Future Sight, and then Pokey comes in and goes down to a Fire Blast. After fighting through 3 crashes, and my team working so hard, I just couldn't let it end like that. So I decided to run it back. This wasn't me trying to show that I could beat this run or cheat the system or anything. This was me giving my team the ending that they deserved. This time we led with Pokey and hit a Thunderbolt, but instead of staying in after the Feather Dance, we swapped to Flappy. Flappy was so scary to this Pidgeot that he weirdly swapped to Rhydon. This gave us a shot to bring Pokey back in and hit the Rhydon with a Surf, which is 4 times effective and took it out in 1 hit. Now we're getting somewhere. Alakazam came in and lived through an Earthquake. But Pokey managed to pull off the clutch of the century and live with 3 HP through a Psychic, and then take out the Alakazam with a second Earthquake. Next, he brings in Executor. We swapped to Flappy because we know we have flying resistance and eat grass moves, and we taught it Shadow Ball, which will hit the Psychic type super effectively. On the switch, Flappy gets hit with a Psychic move, and then the second turn, he gets hit with an Egg Bomb. Flappy lives with 36 health, and we decided to go for a Bite to try to get a flinch so that we could take it out. We don't get the flinch, but fortunately, he misses the second Egg Bomb, and then Flappy is able to hit another Bite and take out the Executor. Everybody's getting a chance to clutch in this fight. Pidgeot comes back out, wants another piece of Flappy, which he gets. He takes out Flappy with an Aerial Ace. Rip Flappy. Pokey comes back in and outspeeds with a Thunderbolt, which takes out the Pidgeot. We're hoping to get a switch into Gyarados here, so that we can hit it with Thunderbolt. And like a chump, Gary plays right into our hand. We get a Thunderbolt on Gyarados. Unfortunately, even though it is 4 times effective, it doesn't manage to kill the Gyarados. He does, however, get paralyzed. Unfortunately, he gets the Thrash off through the paralysis, and our Queen goes down. We bring in Venusaur, who we know will outspeed because of paralysis, and 1 Giga Drain is enough to finish the Gyarados off. Now there's this little problem called Charizard. Luckily, it misses its first Fire Blast. Venusaur hits a clutch Toxic. Next turn, the Fire Blast also misses. Get rolled. We set up a Leech Seed and proceed to stall out this Charizard. For some reason it goes for a Slash instead of a Fire Blast. I guess Gary was getting ready to throw his Game Boy. We heal up with a Synthesis, and Charizard misses a 3rd Fire Blast. I hear the sound of a shattering Game Boy across the room and use a Giga Drain, which does no damage at all. We know Gary's going to use a full Restore on this next turn because Charizard's in the red health. So, reading that, we try to set up another Toxic, which connects. The next turn, he finally hits a Fire Blast. Venusaur can live one of these, but we don't have enough healing to get all the way up to be able to live again. The next Fire Blast connects, and that's it for Venusaur. Well done, Venusaur. You did great. We bring in Venomoth, who uses Psychic, which leaves it at a fraction of health, so that Venusaur could finish it off from beyond the grave. And with that, we're the new Pokemon League champion. Now, I don't claim to have completed this run. I know that I ran it back. I know that technically the run ended. But I have proven that this team can beat Gary. That they could do it. And that with enough good play, you can beat FireRed with hardcore Nuzlocke rules using only poison types. Before this run, I never really liked any of the poison types in the game. But after spending so much time with them, they have all earned a little special place in my heart. This run was a ton of fun, and I really hope that you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed doing it. If you liked the video, feel free to leave a like, or leave a comment, or even subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. Till next time.